Welcome to Voyage the Geek for another week. I'm Dave Scotland. Joining me as always, Dan Miller.
Hello.
Rick Legato, Tony Oakton.
Hola.
Joining us on this panel for what is a pleasant outing this week. We're taking a look at a bit of classic fantasy swords and sorcery type film with a slightly different flavour to some of the other ones we've had a look at. Dan, name that film. What are we having a look at tonight?
It is simply named Krull.
Which is an awkward name, isn't it?
Yeah, it doesn't really speak marketing, does it, or buzz?
It's not the Krull. It's because it's a weird name the first time you hear it, and so you want to know: is that a person? Is it a place? Is it what you call a drop bear when it hits you at 3 a.m?
Yeah.
What is the Krull? And the Krull is not correct.
No.
And so Krull, qualify Krull for us, Rick. What is Krull?
It's the world.
It's the planet.
Mm-hmm.
And unashamedly planetary in nature, not dimensional, not in a time before time. It's just another planet in our universe.
Yep.
Yeah. So, as always, we'll start off by talking about how we found the film. How, as in where, when, how, why, what for. Tony, had you seen Krull before this outing?
Yes.
In its original run in the 80s?
I didn't see it in the pictures, but I saw its time in the early 80s when it appeared on television.
1983 it was released?
I think it probably appeared on television 85, 86.
Mhm.
Those days films was a bit of a lag.
Yep.
Probably saw it then.
Big British production.
It was big, yes.
Huge.
Yeah.
$50 million budget. $50 million on a sci-fi / fantasy. I mean, it's fantasy, but it had lasers in it.
Yeah.
But I think it leans heavily, much heavier on. I think when anyone's fencing with a blade, it's more fantasy than sci-fi, isn't it?
Yeah, it was fantasy with lasers.
Yeah, fantasy with lasers. So someone once said it is Excalibur crossed with Star Wars, but it's far heavier on the Excalibur side of the
less
fence.
Star Wars, more Excalibur.
Yeah. But it did have a big the opening scene of Star Wars with a big Star Destroyer, except this was a big mountain coming past the camera in outer space.
Mm-hmm.
It looked like a bit of bark close up,
It did.
traveling through space.
Yes, it did. So 1983, British production, Elstree Studios, Pinewood Studios, massive indoor build.
Yeah, 27 sound stages, I believe.
Including the big 007 soundstage, which is big yardage, massive yardage. So yeah, I mean they threw everything at this thing, and unfortunately didn't do too well at the box office. I think they only made about 16 million all up domestic. So for that type of investment, but I think it did quite well out of syndication through video release and that sort of stuff. That's how I found it. I didn't go to the pictures and saw the film. I saw it at home on the home video market.
I thought I had seen it, but no.
So for you, it was a recent. It was only the other week that you.
Yep, it was last night.
Yeah.
I thought I had seen it, but I think I'm confusing it with some strange David Carradine sand sorcery thing. So it was brand new to me.
Yep. And your thoughts?
My thoughts, even though I found it a little hard to swallow fantasy and lasers, I'm a bit of a purist.
Yes.
I was surprised. I was pleasantly surprised. My wife, basically her quote was, "This is much better than the shit we normally have to watch.
That's not saying much, is it?
It's not, but at the same time, that sentence is so loaded. Clearly, you're making her watch all the movies that you have to watch as well.
Yeah, well, she's still a little traumatised over Soylent Green.
Oh yeah, which we didn't do a show for yet.
No.
We have to do that, otherwise I have no reason for ever watching that film. There was a slight curiosity, but not enough for me not to just watch it out of the blue. So we do have to do that show.
Yep.
Tony, what about you? You didn't say how did you find it as a experience? Did you enjoy it?
It wasn't as good for me the second time round as it was the first time.
Okay.
I have to say. My memories of it, I think, were slightly
Nostalgic glasses.
nostalgic glasses. Yeah.
Okay.
Didn't really hit the mark for me the second time round.
Yep.
They were quite. I guess I'm probably older and more critical, and I noticed a lot of things which I didn't like about it.
Dan, what do you got?
I didn't see it back in the day.
Yep.
I'm sure I saw it 100 times walking past it on the shelves of the video
Yeah,
store.
same here. And that's why I thought I'd seen it.
And I know that I've seen the trailer on the front of VHS tapes.
Well, you've definitely seen that image.
Yep.
Yeah.
Because the thing in the background looks like a mountain, and yet it's not a mountain.
Looks like the creature from the Black Lagoon.
Yeah, and once you see the film, everything you see there makes sense. But when you haven't seen the film, its curiosity gets better because you don't really know what's going on there. Especially the flying horses there and stuff. Don't know what to expect.
If you read the tags at the top, light years beyond your imagination.
Mm-hmm.
For the top blurb, beyond our time, beyond our universe. Oh God!
Yeah,
there is a planet besieged by alien invaders.
When a young king must rescue
his love from the clutches of the beast. Or risk death.
Or risk the death
of his world. Yeah. For those just listening to the podcast, we're looking at the movie poster.
Yeah. We didn't memorize that.
No.
But yeah, it does have to have the beyond our time, beyond our universe.
There is a planet besieged by alien invaders.
There is something exciting. We promise.
It's one of the longest taglines I've seen.
It is. It's actually copped a bit of ridicule over the years for being one of the longest movie poster taglines.
I've done,
it's a full-blown paragraph.
I've done writers' workshops where when we're trying to, have the tagline of our story, we'd be laughed out of the room if we came up with
well, if that was
like
your elevator pitch, you'd want to make sure you're in a tall building. So, how did you like it, Dan?
No.
And is this your genre? I mean, are you like me where it's got a? I mean, I know Rick likes fantasy as a genre, right? But I haven't seen. I probably would have only seen a mere smidge of the titles that Rick has seen, because it's not. I've never been really attracted to that.
I don't think I've really or can remember too much from this period, 1983, of a good sword and sorcery, super classic, wow, that's cool type thing.
Yep.
So maybe that's clouding my judgment slightly. So first viewing, I thought it was, pretty terrible. Second viewing, slight improvement.
Yeah.
I think on a more nuanced level.
Well, relativity is important here.
On a more nuanced level, it's your relativity.
Hold it up to Red Sonja. Right?
Yeah, I know. We're not setting the bar too high.
And this is the Holy Grail.
You leave Rick alone. It's one of his favourite films.
No, I mean we found a lot of technical, a lot of problems with Red Sonja. When I watched this, they were so far apart when it came to the quality of the production, the makeup. They probably weren't up to Red Sonja when it came to outfits. I think the costumes.
It's only headwear.
Absolutely.
No, I don't know. Costumes and
the Slayers were interesting when it came to headrest,
and even the sets and things. The same was in Red Sonja and this one. They were pretty good.
The writing was atrocious.
Yes, this is where I'm kind of coming from. Is that my opinion that it wasn't very good was an average of some of the very, very good things in the film and some of the bad things in the film, and you sort of it's weird. It's quite polarized, I think. So it's not all a brown bad mush.
Yeah.
It's actually quite sparkly and good. But then there's some like
the narrative doesn't weave the good bits together.
They had a lot of problems. It started off as a medieval story, and then they thought that was a little boring.
So it became a journey.
And that's because they had already a bunch of locations planned. Then when it went all fantasy and sci-fi, that's when they decided to build a crazy amount of sound stages, which blew the budget. And it went through several script versions, and
it shows.
Yeah.
I think one of the things that really struck me, it is very uneven.
Yeah.
In many ways, I mean, one of the things that struck me is that it doesn't seem to know what age group of audience it's capable of. It's got, the quite strong horror elements, the guy mutating, and,
absolutely,
spikes being driven through people. But then you've got that sequence when they're riding the ponies, which is straight out of My Little Pony.
Yes.
Which no adult would take seriously,
Yep.
And very wooden, very poor dialogue. A princess who really is just a token female character and does nothing. Look at Star Wars. 6 years earlier, you got Princess Leia, who was a very, strong female character, and this is almost like aggression away from that. They're just wenches who are just there as foils for the men.
Like she was just. I mean, they could have stolen.
They could have done some interesting things with her, and they didn't do anything.
A goblet, and it would have served the same purpose as her character.
One of the things that really annoyed me. You've got who's the famous actress from who appeared in the original film, David Lynch's film. Film I'm thinking about.
Razorhead.
Sandworms and
June.
June, yes.
Yeah.
She's the queen from June. She's a good actress.
Yeah.
And she's in it for like 30 seconds.
Yes.
And says virtually nothing.
Yeah.
And she's covered in prosthetics for
most
of that time.
It's just a weird.
I have a
very
bit of a
uneven.
sort of a defense for the kind of lameness of Princess What's-Her-Face's role in the movie.
Yeah.
In that, she wasn't really effective. She didn't do anything. She was just.
Well, she didn't do anything. But my defense for the poor old movie is I don't think the hero guy did much either. No.
No, he didn't. Really.
No, you're right.
No. And the other thing, which I'm just going to say, put this out before we go into it, is, if you're going to make a film which has a lot of melee combat, you better make sure you're getting melee combat. The melee combat is some of the worst combat I have ever seen in a film. It was shocking stuff. Badly choreographed, badly put together.
Yeah.
Bad special
If you
effects.
slow it down too, like if you pause and drop back, go back a couple of seconds, you start to see some real issues with the choreography. It's pretty poor. I
mean, because Star Wars has a little bit of melee combat with the lightsabers, obviously. But I think Lucas very sensibly steered away from that as much as he could, because melee combat's difficult to do well. And if you've got
especially
sci-fi
with
films,
pasty white guys that really, if it's not like a Jackie Chan film where everyone's athletic and has some kind of martial arts cred. A lot of these guys have only picked a sword up last week, and it
just didn't work.
They didn't sell it at all.
Just didn't work.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of it as well. So, And I also find, while I'm on the subject, I find if you've got a world that's got energy weapons, right? Melee combat is a hard sell, because if you've got energy weapons, you're going to pick people off from like a mile away.
And they tried to compromise, didn't they? Where the weapons only could fire once.
Well, no,
and then,
it looks like
then they had to clumsily turn it upside down and then use it as a
So for the
stick.
guys who haven't seen it, you've got like a sword with a laser gun at the butt,
one end.
At the one end.
They come in, they fire the laser gun once, and then they turn it around, and it becomes a hacking weapon.
Yeah.
So whoever came up with the laser tech,
fix bayonets to the laser guns.
We've got lasers, but they only fire once. Can you imagine how ineffective stormtroopers would be in that scenario? You'd need a base that big. So what we do is we have a look at the film. We use the narrative to progress through the film so that we can just stop off along the way and discuss various things. So Dan, you're going to take us through the narrative journey that is Krull, the planet.
Yep.
This is a ride.
Yeah, where do we start with this one? I know that we've got, in typical fantasy format, a narrative or a narrator that prepares us by saying that there is... Some say there is a legend. I think he. It's like a friend of a friend told me there was a legend that a king would meet a queen or a prince would meet a princess, and their child will
rule the galaxy.
Will rule the galaxy, or save the world, or save the galaxy.
They always oversell it. It's like rule the friggin' galaxy. That's like billions of planets. What are you talking about?
All in.
Yes, we're all in. It's not like we'll just like rule the little area that we can see. No, we're going to rule the damn galaxy.
Yep.
Screw it. Yeah, all right. So, what I thought we'd just do is just go through like the narrative beats. To me, in this movie, they were pretty clear.
Mm-hmm.
And also, they follow fairly strongly, or they can be correlated fairly strongly with Joseph Campbell's journey of the hero.
They can, but at the same time, it sounds to me like they were aware of the hero's journey, but they didn't thoroughly understand it.
Yeah, well, it's like the hero's journey on a Friday night after a few drinks trying to wander home.
Yeah.
It's the hero's journey.
Yeah.
They stagger around a little.
Yeah.
They're a little wobbly on the journey.
There's some pivotal elements there that they probably missed.
All right, so I want to sort of explain it as the first story beat and perhaps its purpose, and then we can talk about the little nuances. But the first purpose is the baddie's arrival. So it's the presentation of the bad guys.
Yes.
And it's a big giant mountain flying through space. Okay, so what do we think of that? It's a space mountain.
It's interesting. I've certainly never seen a mountain flying through space like that.
Yes.
Not an easy thing to pull off.
What, technically or
no, just
actually?
Just as a compelling piece of cinema.
Okay.
And it didn't really read.
No, it was a bit of pine bark.
Yeah.
Yes, it was a bit of pine bark. And my thing that I had from it. Now, who's the guy who does the music in this?
Oh, well, see, this is where they've brought out the big guns.
Well, I'm going to...
James Horner. Now, James Horner, his credit list
Yes.
is pretty spectacular.
Yes.
He is credited with composing. He's listed at he's got 130 credits just in the music department because he's a composer. He composes symphonic pieces for film.
Okay, and I'm going to use this, twist this around, and we're going to have this sort of
now that's all the way back
jiu-jitsu thing where you're going to use this against.
That's all the way back to 79 as a composer, as a music department person. But as a music department, a conductor, not a composer.
Right. So,
but his composing chops is 161 credits. And in his 161 credits, we see Karate Kid. We see Avatar. He did the music for Avatar.
Okay. However,
was this an early
Apocalypto.
film?
No,
Apocalypto, fantastic.
James Cameron Avatar.
So I want to start stacking this all up. Completely excellent
storm.
Music composer,
Yes.
organizer,
Yes.
and musician.
Yep.
And he's done some mega famous movies.
Yep.
Now, which was one of the super famous ones? Tell me again.
Well, more recently he's done around that similar time, 1980. This was 1983. He did Krull. He did 48 Hours, which is an Eddie Murphy film. He did Something Wicked Comes This Way. He did Uncommon Valor, Gorky Park. Wow. He did Star Trek 3. He did Star Trek 2, The Wrath of Khan, which the music in this had a very similar feel to. The Wrath of Khan being sort of a standout film in that genre.
So where I'm leading is where does Krull come in his career at making music for movies?
Very early.
Right, that is what I was fishing for.
He started in 78, and then for the first couple of years, there were not a lot there that you would... Well, believe it or not, he did the classic sci-fi Battle Beyond the Stars.
Oh, there you go.
Well, that's maybe a mark in my favour, actually.
Which was early on. That was his fifth film, composing.
Okay, because what I think happened with this guy is he made some completely excellent, perfectly wonderful music that just didn't fit what he was aiming for. And the opening credits is, I think, a classic because you've got Death Space Mountain...
Yep.
And the music that's with it is when really it should be
Yeah. It should be largely just sound effects.
Yeah. Or something ominous.
Well,
and
it's big ship music. It's big ship
some
music.
orchestral kettle drum doom.
Yeah, barricos, bottom end, rumbling. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I'm with you. And it almost feels like the music was deliberately pushed towards the Excalibur side of the equation.
Maybe he'd kind of done a lot of the work beforehand when
trumpets
they're in the
resounding.
early stage of the... Yeah, that might be true. All right. So then
he did music for Braveheart.
So then he does then there's the narrator who does the story so far and gives you a bit of a glimpse as to what's going on.
Mm-hmm.
Then we got to set up the good guys. So what happens in the setup of the good guys? Basically, there's going to be an alliance and a marriage, and a marriage that reinforces an alliance.
Wedding to unite some
people who we've never heard of and don't care about.
Some warring clans.
Some random people.
Yep.
Who die.
Yep.
They start.
So we also, another thing that they did as well that annoyed me in this section was they tell, don't show.
Yeah.
So it's like, oh, we've just been hassled by all the horrible bad guys. And the other guy says, oh, yes, well, we hate those bad guys as well. But nobody's ever seen the bad guys.
Yep.
Nobody's ever experienced any of this from our point
and
of
the
view.
whole
The
marriage
audience.
is happening because of the bad guys.
Yes.
It's the whole idea that only if they make the alliance can they finally beat these people.
We should at least have a cut to one of those awful soldiers pushing an old
Yeah,
woman into a puddle of mud or something or other.
I think there's one or two shots with them silhouetted riding across a bridge or something. But yeah, we don't get to see how bad the bad guys are.
Well, the thing is, there's no crisis or conflict.
Yeah.
To make us go, yes,
like
go
that,
get married.
Like
Yes,
that opening
yes,
sequence
yeah.
from Conan, where the bad guys ride in and just slay everyone.
Yeah.
In fact, in this film, the good guys don't even have towns. They just have a castle
True.
in the middle of a paddock.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? There's a rule to having a castle.
Yeah.
You need people. You need
Serfs.
people. Yeah. Where do they live? They're not. Not everyone's living in the castle. I found that was a bit odd, but yeah, you're right. We didn't get enough of a setup for the bad guys.
No.
All right. So, but we do at when the marriage starts, then the bad guys kick down the door and they start a big fight. And
They didn't seem particularly well prepared for that, did they?
No.
The good guys, they were sort of in their castle doing their wedding, and these bad guys just turned and beat the door down. I think they would be maybe expecting that because they.
Yes, if you were smart, and considering that half of the guys that arrived said, "Oh, we've been attacked by all the bad guys, and you know, we only just made it here just out of luck or whatever."
And it's supposed to be in a castle. Did they leave the back door open?
Well, I know what they did. They made the worst mistake that we seem to see so often. They didn't bar up the windows, right? Because at one point, one of the Slayers just jumps through a window, right? It's a stained glass window. So the biggest doors in the world, but yet they just put a window over there, and that's how they got in. But yeah, the bad guys didn't have much of a problem getting in.
Yeah, I mean, what sort of castle was it? Did it have walls?
A show castle.
It was
probably.
a show castle.
And I did note with amusement that the hero's first attack on the Slayers was with a chair.
Yes, I did notice that too.
Yeah.
So I was like, oh, okay, great start. Clobber him with a chair. All right, so there's a big fight because there's going to be a marriage on, and the princess is stolen, as is the fate of princesses.
Yep. There's an abduction.
And the prince is
taken
falls badly down some stairs and twists his ankle horribly.
He takes a shoulder shot, the same shot that's killing everyone else, but he takes a shot and proceeds to fall in a heap at the bottom of the stairs.
Yes, with his nice manly chest all nice and open and visible.
Yeah, Beck did notice. He said, "Oh, great, we have a hairy chest shot."
Yeah, good abs.
Yeah.
Blew his shirt off.
Some very good abs.
I think that's part of what he was hired for, if anything else.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so the next one is Meeting of the Mentor.
Yes. Did we see him before that? I swear
Yeah.
he was hiding in the.
Yeah,
he was
he
hiding
was.
in the forest.
So
We don't know who he is.
Yeah, so he was just like watching the bad guys
Ride past on the way to the castle,
not warning anyone.
not
Yeah,
setting up a smoke.
I didn't even grab his
Message.
name. To me, we just kept referring to him as
Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Yeah.
Gandalf's lesser known, less successful brother.
Yeah. He was.
Who wasn't even a Magigan, really. He was
Generic.
he's just a guy. Yes, I can't for the life of me remember his name.
Was it? What's his name as an actor? Was he?
His name as an actor, I can tell you this because I looked this up.
Yeah.
His name as an actor was.
Was he David Batley?
I've got it here somewhere. Where is it? Freddie Jones.
Oh, he's
No.
Freddie Jones.
This,
So
this is the quote from Rotten Tomatoes. Freddie Jones won 1969 World's Best TV Actor. He was Claudius in one of the BBC's.
he's a very good actor.
And it goes on to say, it was an honour he'd seldom be in danger of winning again. Tells you everything you need to know about Freddie Jones. He's a character actor who appears in a lot of these things, actually.
Well, his how would you pronounce this? His name is a 4-letter name. YNYR.
Yes, I would pronounce that. Why would you make your heroes hard to pronounce or read?
Ynir. So he's Obi-Wan Kenobi.
That's what high school kids do when they create fantasy things. They create these weird
These
names.
triple word score Scrabble things.
Because that equals compelling.
Yeah, and believable because it's totally unfamiliar.
Yeah.
All right, so the mentor says you got to go and do a thing for a thing, and we're
not before the prince has a little cry.
Oh yes, the prince.
He did have a little cry. He had a moment of self-doubt
because the prince's dad got laser beamed.
That's right.
Right, and so when he found out that his dad, he had an instant wince of cry.
That's right.
Snapped his.
Well, the old boy wasn't happy with that.
No,
he wasn't having it.
No, he said, "I came here to find a king and I find a boy."
Yes, which is a verbal bitch slap to the prince.
Yeah,
very early on. In fact, the old boy really was quite a.
It was a bit
overpowering.
stroppy, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was a very overpowering mentor to the prince.
Okay, so the prince has a bit of a cry, and a badly acted cry, I must sort of also add.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what's our solution? We're going to need two things.
We're going to need the glaive.
Yeah, well, I was on a higher level, so we're going to need a magic item. But yes, we're going to need the glaive.
Yes.
And then I've written down here, and it might be a typo, but I've said we need a bunch of red shits. I think I was trying to type red shirts.
Yes.
But I think either works.
Absolutely. Yep.
Well, considering two of the red shits went on to have quite big careers.
Yes.
So we'll talk about that when
we
get to them.
More famous than their start here. So they're going to have to go and get a couple of things. They need a magic item and they need a crew.
Mm-hmm.
All right, then. So the next story beat is we've got to get the magic item.
Yes, the glaive.
Which is supposed to be a glaive, correct me if I'm wrong, is a double-edged sword, big double-edged sword thing.
Yes, and not a ninja flick blade star with sparkly diamonds.
No.
And it's supposed to be a thing of legend and not an actual thing. But the old boy says it is a thing. Go up the mountain and get the thing.
And it would have been great if you showed us the legend, not just tell us, oh, by the way, it's really cool and it's an awesome legend.
And he's got this shoulder wound that made him like
fall down a flight of stairs,
and yet he can climb a mountain.
Well, he did get the special brew. Remember, the old boy gave him the special.
He had that Vaseline stuff
that he had in his bag. Yeah, special ointment.
The anti-laser beam Vaseline.
That's it.
Okay, so how difficult was it to retrieve the super magic item that's featured on the front of the cover of the video box, the videotape box?
I have more trouble finding my car keys.
Yes, he found it. In a little tiny crack in the wall of a cave.
In some red goo that was possibly supposed to be lava.
The red goo lava. Yeah.
Sent some lava to go. I did. This was one of the. I'm being pathetic here, but I did like the scenery.
Oh yeah.
Nice, there's some very nice shots of
the actual landscape is beautiful.
I believe it was filmed in Italy.
A little bit of Italy, but also Lanzarote.
Yeah.
Which those volcanic. That's a very volcanic island, I believe, in the Canary Islands.
As well, and nicely set up. It was nice.
Is that the same place as Red Sonja then?
Red Sonja was in.
I'm generalising Italy as a single place.
Abruzza, Italy. Also Veneto, Italy. Belluno.
Landscape was fantastic,
stunning,
and the rock climbing was quite convincing. You had a good. When I was watching rock climbing.
Yeah, they actually filmed that quite well. It's a pity they didn't do more with it.
Yeah.
Where's the danger?
Yes, there was no danger. Yeah,
there was a bit where he was dodging rocks.
Yes, but that was like 5 rocks that were actually pebbles that somebody
paper mache rocks.
Yeah, then rolled down the hill. All right, so the super powerful mega glaive super weapon, he just goes in and gets and comes out.
Yep.
And then he then, like a kid in a candy store, he wants to swish it around and stuff. Yep. And what does the mentor dude say?
Don't.
Up.
Only when the time is right.
You need to learn to master the force before you're allowed to use the lightsaber.
Yep.
No, I think he was just just don't. I think he was just doing all right.
Yeah.
And I was like, why?
Because the lightsaber is a good example. Like Luke gets a lightsaber, and within 2 seconds,
Yeah,
he's lit it up.
swishing it around.
He could have taken out C-3PO. He could have taken his own head off. He didn't know what it was.
As soon as Obi-Wan hands it to him, he like flicks it on.
He could have had it backwards.
Yes, I know.
Yeah. So he goes, so he climbs the mount, he climbs the Matterhorn to get the glaive, only to find out that he's only allowed to strap it to his waist.
Yeah, basically, he
And not use it, not play with it.
He whips it out, flashes it around,
Yep.
and seconds rate.
Yeah.
Gandalf just says
And
no.
the actor had perfected his glaive throwing pose. Did you see he used
Yeah.
it? I went looking for images for our little montage here, and you'll be surprised at just how many images are him in that same shoulder pose like this. And it's all from different parts of the film. He does it at least 15 times. He does this. So he has his glaive pose, but he's not allowed to use it.
There's another thing about the glaive as well, is that only the true, right, correct hero could actually get it.
I thought the lava was the giveaway to that. I thought only the true hero can get it out of the lava.
We had to have Gary the idiot, who was his offsider, go in there with him, and
You're
Gary
right.
says, "I'll get it," and he's like, "Shh, oh no, I burned my hand off."
You're right.
Yeah, there was no big. It's like, thanks for letting us know, because really, there's. Yeah, like the show don't tell. They do the opposite. We're not going to show anything. We'll just tell you.
Yeah. And if they didn't have the old boy, then
Mm.
so really the narrator at the start of the film should have been more about the old boy.
I think it was the same actor.
It
who
was the old,
narrator.
it was,
Yeah.
and he should have been talking about himself. If not for me, the planet would be in peril.
Yeah.
But he's the only one that could work out where the bad guy was, where the glaive was.
Basically, the narrator and that character has to deliver the synopsis.
Yeah.
Throughout the film, because they don't actually show it.
Yeah.
So that might be his new name. Actually, he's
Exposition. Expo.
the exposition wizard.
All right, the exposition conjurer.
Yeah.
All right, so they also have to do another thing. They have to go and get another piece of supernatural aid, and they have to go and see a seer who's also blind.
And what is the seer going to provide?
He's got magic Google Maps.
Yep.
And he's going to tell us where the
mountain is.
Where the mountain is, because the
Now,
mountain
why-
moves.
The mountain moves every
Tuesday at 3:00. It disappears and goes somewhere else, so you can never catch it.
Did we have a time period? How long is it?
It doesn't spend
every day.
It doesn't spend a night in the same place.
That's
ever.
right. So it's every day it moves.
So that's why you can't catch it, and you got to get somebody who knows where it is.
Yeah. And it just sort of fades out and then fades in somewhere else.
Okay, but before we go and see the Magician, we got to meet two of our band of red shits / shirts.
Two? Yep. Well, we got to meet the dumb.
And let's say
we need the jester for the crew.
Yes.
The comedy relief.
Yep.
He wasn't very funny.
Yeah,
No.
not much of a relief.
What else has he been in? His face was so
His
familiar.
face is very familiar because he looks like.
He's been in a few English. He was actually in the original Charlie and the Chocolate Factory in a bit part. Remember?
Was he really?
There's been a lot of English acting roles.
That's probably
He
what I've
looks
seen
a
him.
lot
Pretty
like.
much the same
Is it
thing.
Rob Brydon?
He looks like a character from Monty Python, but I don't think he's ever actually.
Yeah,
been
he
in
looks like a
Python.
couple of English actors that he's not.
But he's
And
been in
those
it.
guys are
Yeah.
funny.
Yeah, yeah. He's definitely. There's been a lot of English
Mm.
B movies of that sort of era.
Yep.
Yeah.
Actually, no, we meet two, but we only pick up one.
Yes.
True.
Who's the second one
The second one,
that we meet and don't pick up?
well, let's say the amount of eyes that are available for adding to the party is 3.
Yes.
All right, so we meet the Cyclops.
That's right.
The
Played by-
Cyclops dude.
Played by Bernard Breslaw,
It was in the Carry On films and Hawk the Slayer.
and was in Hawk the Slayer. That's
Oh.
right.
He's basically your big guy. If you
He's
need a
the
big,
giant go-to guy.
Yeah. If you need a big guy,
Because this other guy that we met, the magician, his name is Ergo. You know, he kept saying, giant this, giant that, little people like me. But he was the same height as everybody else. He kept saying that he was a really small person.
Who?
The Ergo, the magician.
I think he was speaking metaphorically.
The giant. The
The
Ergo.
magician was always complaining that he was a short person.
I think
You know, he would say, big of vision, narrow of
stature,
Thing, short
big
of
vision,
stature.
short stature.
Bad of acting.
Yeah.
Yeah, but anyway. All right, so we meet those two guys,
Mm-hmm.
and there's some, hijinks because he's not a very good magician and he can't spells it himself by accident, and those type of things.
Yep.
Okay, so next we have a quick check-in on the baddies, just see how they're going.
Mm-hmm.
How they're going.
Well, we've got Princess Bimbo is free to go anywhere within the mountain, within the confines of the mountain.
What's the princess's name in Mario? That's who she is.
Peach is
Peach.
Princess Peach.
She's Peach. Princess Peach.
Yeah.
Yes, Princess Peach.
Who basically waits at the end of the game. That's what she is.
Yes. So anyway, they have a bit of a chat, and he's saying, "Look, I've got this marriage proposal thing going on. Would you like to rule the galaxy?" And she's like, "Oh no, true love, something else. Blah blah blah.
Yeah.
Don't want power.
Yeah.
You're stinky." All right. So the next story, next story beat.
Can I just, this is a kind of a throwback to those sort of surreal 1970s movies which have this weird imagery which don't really make any sense. He's standing in the middle of an eye at one point.
Yeah.
He seems to have no reason to be there at all.
Yeah.
And why was that in that mountain? And what was it doing there? I mean, if
I
it had been
got
like an
the-
eye on the side looking out, it wasn't. It seemed to be just
And there were
in there.
lots of bits internal that
eye.
were taken
it's
from.
right there.
They were
What the hell?
taken from the organism or the beast in himself. I got the sense that the beast is the mountain.
It's
Maybe.
a part of him.
Yeah, they were one together. It was that's very fantasy, isn't it? That's sort of
The architecture inside, looked a bit like had teeth and
yeah,
ribs
I think that was the
and-
intention.
esophagus
Things like that.
and things like that. Yeah.
So it was a bit surreal.
Yeah, it was very surreal.
All right, then. So the next one, I think, is actually the story beat crossing the first threshold. So this is where they meet the band of robbers.
That's right.
So they walk into this thing, and hiding behind the rocks is all of these ne'er-do-wells.
And we're introduced for the first time in cinema history, I believe. We might be. There might be other times where they played bit parts without any dialogue, but Robbie Coltrane and Liam Neeson.
Yep.
Now, Robbie Coltrane, remember he was loading luggage onto a plane in Flash Gordon.
He's in Flash.
Was Flash Gordon before this film?
I don't know.
I think
1983.
Well, let me go into the data board.
I'm guessing Flash is after.
You guys discuss. I'm going to go and have a look.
I actually thought Robbie Coltrane at this stage, he looked like he'd been the extra member of the Village People, but he didn't have enough rhythm, so they kicked him out because that's what he looks like.
He was, yeah.
With that
1980 was Flash Gordon.
With that flat top and that moustache.
Bing, bing, bingo. All of these people in Fantasyland, in a fantasy film, in a fantasy movie, have long, scraggly hair.
Yeah.
Because there are no barbers in the fantasy world, as far as I'm aware. Except for some reason, Robbie Coltrane has this highly shaved, buzz-cut flat top. And for me, it just stuck out like a sore thumb. And it's like, what? Why?
Yeah.
Everybody else has got long hair, as you would in the medieval planet Krull no barber days
Yeah.
of
Even the little kid's got a bowl cut.
Yeah.
Yes. Oh, with the obvious exception of Captain Superhair, the prince,
I think he's the only American actor in it.
Yeah.
Is him.
who has ridiculously good hair.
And it was interesting, Liam Neeson, I can't say his name now, he's always kind of in the back, throws the odd comment in.
Yeah.
And his acting is still a level way above everyone else's.
So, I thought that as well.
And he's got just this bit part.
Yeah, and his character was evident. Like he was the womanizer that had a wife in every town, sort of thing.
He had more character and presence.
Yeah, he was the guy that
everybody else.
Like the boys hit town and they need some food and grog, and he said, "All right, I'll fix you up." And so the missus turns up with other women to look after the boys. So he would have been a legend in the group.
Yeah.
All right, so they pick up. So essentially, they make friends with the robbers.
That's correct.
But there's one other.
Well, the robbers find out that he's the king.
Yeah.
The robbers find out that he's the king.
Because only the king can have the keys. They're not robbers as much.
They're bandits or criminals.
They're escaped prisoners.
Yeah.
Because they've all got the
manacles, and only the king and the whatever the
king's
other
hand or something like that
can have the key, and he proves he has the key.
Yep.
But I still think they're not entirely convinced at this stage.
Yeah. They're skeptical.
Yeah, skeptical.
of the guy traveling with the old man and the clown over there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what's the last point I want to make is what's the lead bandit's name, the lead robber's name, the lead of the robbers?
Well, I can tell it to you, but I can't remember it from the actual film. But it's Torquil.
Yes, or Tarquin or something or other like that.
Torquil.
And
I'm sure there are WoW characters with better names, named by 12-year-olds out there.
There's a little bit of Welsh in the names, isn't there? Like the main hero is Colwyn. Col. That's the Prince Colwyn.
Yeah.
The princess is Lissa.
Yep.
Yeah.
And don't the Welsh like to put consonants all together, like YNYR?
Yeah.
Yeah. Could be a Welsh bent to the names.
Could be.
Keegan.
Okay, but my point is that I don't think anybody named Torquil is particularly impressive. I would have called him Gary the Bastard or something or other.
With the needs to be the little name, middle name. And then it can be Torquil.
Torquil the Krull.
Torquil the Stabber or something like that. Or just Stabber.
Torquil the constantly miffed. Something like that. All right, so moving on. Seeking the Boon is the next one. The Wizard in the Rock. So they eventually go and find Blindo the Wizard.
Yes.
And he's in his magic crystal room, checking out his magic crystals.
Green room with his green crystals. And what do we know about green in fantasy? Very powerful.
Oh, yes, that's true. Yes, we must remember that.
And like
actually.
all seers in fantasy, or in myth, he's blind. That's the whole thing.
Yeah.
You don't have normal sight, you have special sight. Like the Oracle, the Greek Oracle. What's her name? It escapes me now. Come on, you educated Malakas. One of you must know.
No.
The Oracle of
Delphi?
Seeing this.
Yeah.
Yes, that oracle with the eyes. Okay, so what goes on? He
does
uses
go
his magic crystal and he's like getting all his magic Google Maps happening.
That's right.
But unfortunately, when he opens up, it's like the hacking thing from the, when those Indian telemarketers try and hack your computer.
Yeah.
Yes, unfortunately.
The Beast.
Unfortunately, the Beast, yes. He set up a proxy server.
That's right. There was a firewall.
There's a firewall.
And the Beast realised the hack.
Yes. And he gets bloody Blindo's sys key.
That's right.
And sys keys him.
That's right.
Seriously. So anyway, he reverses it back and then
That's right.
ruins his day.
Smashes his crystal.
Smashes his crystal.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so now we're in...
well, now he can't see.
Yes.
So now they need plan B because his mountain finding Google Maps crystal has been smashed by the Beast because of the Beast firewall.
Right.
So now they have to go find, isn't it a temple where the Beast can't penetrate? Basically, hasn't
In the middle of the swamp.
Yeah, an impenetrable firewall. So you can.
Are you sure you're not just making that up, Rick?
No, he's right. It's in the VPN swamp.
It is, yeah. An emerald temple in the great swamp.
All right, then.
Great treacherous swamp.
Yeah.
His need
So-
is great.
So, yeah. So the
It's
next
a
story
quality, yeah.
beat is we've got to go into a swamp and do the same thing that we just did now.
Yep, basically.
That's right. That's right.
So when you're writing a movie and you're like trying to pad it out a little bit, it's like, let's do a thing that doesn't work and then we'll do
And
the
then
thing
do it again in a
Yes.
different place.
And we'll flip it and we'll make that also not work.
Yep.
Yes.
That entire swamp location, which is where they're heading, was the thing that they built in the 007 soundstage.
Right.
And
It's huge.
there's a few sweeping camera shots there, man.
I
That
was
thing is a
impressed.
fucking paddock.
Mm.
It is
Yeah.
huge. And half of it's filled with water. There were shots there where the Slayers were coming up out of the water, which I think they shot in reverse.
Yeah.
If you watch
Make
the...
them sink into the
Yeah.
sand. Yeah.
I was very impressed by that soundstage. That was a hell of a soundstage.
Oh, it's impressive, yeah.
Yeah, it's huge.
Yeah.
All right then. So,
Bit of trivia here. Apparently, I read this. I don't know if it's IMDb or something else, but apparently it was filmed in the middle of winter. The soundstage was so huge they couldn't afford to heat it all, so the actors got very, very cold. It was a very miserable experience for all of them.
Nightmare.
And I
Yes.
believe it's the same soundstage where they made the swamp for Empire Strikes Back.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it wouldn't
yeah.
surprise me. I remember Lucas complaining because he used to shoot a lot of his films. He shot all of his films, the indoor stuff, and at Pinewood.
Yeah.
The English cinema is very unionised. and come 4:35 or something in the afternoon, no matter where they were in a shot, these massive doors would just start opening with all the noise and everything, and this little old woman would walk in with this fucking tea trolley, and everyone in production would down tools and head over and just start sipping tea, and Lucas would be fuming. Fucking get the shot.
Scones with cream.
And there's the tea lady. I think there's a documentary where they sit down and talk to this tea lady that was there when they shot all of the James Bond movies, and that Pinewood studio has seen some incredible films shot there. She'd have some stories.
All right, so they have to go to a swamp to find a temple with another Google Maps thing. And so I suppose the next story beat that I had here was trials. You know, they've got to have some trials. So they're going to have a battle in the swamp.
Yes. But not before we have a switcheroo going on, don't we? With
battle first. Well, the battle at least is
they sort of. I think the battle takes the focus away from the seer.
That's right.
And then the seer gets a switcheroo happen.
So there's a doppelganger.
Yes.
Going on.
A changeling.
A changeling.
That is correct. Changeling.
Okay, so our super seer, our blind seer, who's been so spectacularly helpful to the plot, the characters, the story, and so we've become super invested in, now gets killed in a second and replaced by another creature that looks exactly like him.
Yes.
Wasn't much of a seer, was he? Because couldn't see that.
No.
Because he didn't have his little boy servant.
You've got to wonder about his skills, really.
He's useless without his 7-year-old.
Yeah, that little boy, who was that?
Well,
yes. Well, why was that is another question.
That was his bet. Right? He's an old boy up in a cave. No one's around. He had his choice. He could have had a little handmaiden. Could have had an old
handmaiden.
Stop now.
Yeah.
All right.
Walk away.
So there's a big battle goes on for some reason, for no reason at all.
Well,
actually,
there's lots of reason. This is so that we can experience the melee that you were talking about.
Oh, yes,
it's a fantastic experience of
how melee combat can be improvised by people with no skill.
Absolutely.
In seconds.
Absolutely.
Yes.
And there was a lot of teamwork melee as well.
Yes.
Even simple moves like, I'm going to go down on my hands and knees. You push him back. He'll fall over me, and then we'll stab him on the ground.
Yes.
There were slayers coming out of the water. There were 3 slayers coming out of the water, which I think if you look hard, you'll see the ripples going in instead of out. They filmed it in reverse.
And Torquil has a move where 1 minute he's fighting, next minute he's jumping down from a tree.
Ah, that's right. That's right. And there was a tree axe swing move that was going on as well. What did we think of the Slayer death sequence as well, with the thing in the brain that went into the ground? That frightened the shit out of me when I was younger.
That was a great idea. Let's take it further. Are they all part of the beast? Are there these little worms waiting to enter this suit of armor back at the mountain?
Yeah.
Like, let's do something with it. No.
Yes, not let's take it further. Let's take it somewhere.
but they do that with the story. It's like, here's this idea, but we're not going to do anything.
Yeah.
Here's an idea. No.
You could have at least had one shot where that little squiggly thing comes back out of the sand and jumps on somebody's face, and they're like running around and going, "Oh, get it off me! Oh my god! Oh my god!"
Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
So we're now with the seer, who's now the evil seer. There's the
seer. That's not the seer. The Clayton's seer.
The seer 2.0
that you have when you don't have a seer.
All right, and so he's going to stab our hero in the back
with his. Claw him to death.
Claw him to death.
That's the beast's trademark, isn't it? The claw thing. So everything that's under his command has a claw.
And the black eyes.
Yeah.
So then what happens is one of the other guys, the Cyclops, who's been following at a distance.
He stuck around while they took off. Actually, Cyclops helped them in the melee. That's how they all...
Yeah, so he's just been following along. He wants to join the club.
He's now part of the crew.
Can I be part of your team?
That's right.
And so
he has that amusing repartee with Ergo, doesn't he?
Yeah, that's right.
It goes on for far too long.
Yes.
Yeah.
Where one actor is actually pretty good and then the other actor is not so good.
Well, we get some exposition about the Cyclops too at that time, don't we?
Yeah.
Which I found quite interesting.
They made a deal with the Beast.
Yes.
I thought this was one of your better plot points.
Yes.
That they at least took it somewhere.
Yeah.
It resolved itself.
Yeah.
And it became integral to the plot.
What happens to the Cyclops dude at the end of the movie?
Well, he saw his own death.
Where does he get killed? I don't want to.
Well, he gets squashed.
He gets squashed in the roller door,
Oh yeah, that's right.
the squishy door, the
Like the dude in Red Sonja.
yeah, pretty much.
The same door. They probably bought it from the same
could be.
salesman.
Yeah,
He goes around
rock
fantasy world.
squashing door.
Yeah, the rock roller door.
All right, that was weird because I didn't remember that.
Well, you have punched a bit of a plot hole because
Did you watch the film?
the
Dan?
culture, the Cyclops made a deal with the Beast, but the Beast reneged on the deal, and instead of being able to see the future, they could only see the only future they could see was their own death.
And yeah, and
So he saw his own death and said, "I can't go with you because it's my time." But if he saw his own death, he would have known he had to go with them because his death was up on the mountain in the squashy door.
Yeah, so I still don't understand what happened. What happened there at the end?
I think he thought he was supposed to die back
In the swamp.
back in the where they found the horses.
Ah, that's right.
Because they leave, and he said, "I can't go because I'm
That's right.
supposed to meet my death here, basically." And then, and it's supposed to, that's why they have that big line they stick in the film where it doesn't belong, where if you don't, where the kid for some reason knows this, despite all these adults around, the little kid's the only one that knows that if he avoids his own death, he'll be miserable and broken forever. So the idea is that he risks that fate
Yep.
of being ever sad.
Versus
by-
being dead. Okay.
by leaving where he thinks he's supposed to die to go help them.
Okay.
All right, so
And
they,
dies anyway.
I think they just jumped from not going deep enough to going way too deep on that one.
Yep.
Anyway, all right, so something about his death and he can see the future, but it didn't seem to be linked in with the plot.
No.
It would have been better if it was I saw my death as an important part of the plot, and here
Yeah.
I have to do. Instead, he got squished in the door, which I don't think was that important to the plot.
Yeah, and it wasn't that heroic. Like,
Yes.
die doing something useful.
It was important to the escape. Like,
No, they were still breaking in.
yeah, they needed to get in because if they're not in, by the time the mountain disappears, they're pooched.
But
And they were on the outside.
yeah.
They use it just and they just hold on.
Well, I mean, I don't know what he did to help them get in.
He held the door open. They all got through while he was holding
is
the
that
door
what
open.
is that what it was? Okay, fair enough.
But we're still in the swamp though, aren't we? Because
We're
the
back,
sea
back,
is
back,
not
back.
the one of the Clayton Sea is not dead yet.
Yeah. So we're still in the swamp. We haven't
Yeah,
done all
yeah.
that
So
yet.
we you mean the doppelganger, the
Yes.
change?
Yeah,
Okay,
we've jumped ahead. Now we've got
okay.
go
So
back.
the seer actually works out that there's a changeling, and
Yes.
he kills the changeling.
That's right.
Right.
The Cyclops works out.
The Cyclops.
That's
Sorry,
right.
sorry. It's the Cyclops. So now that we've had Plan A that didn't work and Plan B that didn't work,
Yep.
and then we're going to just like fuck it, we'll just go a completely different Plan C.
Yep. Yep.
When really we could have gone with Plan C.
The whole time we could have gone with Plan C, and we could have taken all the boys instead of sending the old boy.
Yeah.
So where do they go? What's Plan C?
Well, they have to go and see the wise woman, who is the widow of the web. And she's got more magic seeing power as well. And she lives in a cave with a giant spider.
That's right.
Why did she do that?
Why does she live in the cave with a giant spider?
Yes.
Because some magic thing that happened that I really couldn't understand.
Because she got cursed for
I'm good.
killing her
Son.
son when
Well,
he
I
was
thought it was
born.
going to turn out to be the prince. I was like,
Yeah, that
that's
would have
the
been more
plot
interesting.
twist.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, that
Instead, it just turned out to be pretty cruel.
Yeah,
yeah,
it was
that
just-
might have been interesting,
Yeah.
and they
But
couldn't have that because then it'd stick out too much.
Because it turns out she's the ex of
Second
Obi-Wan
rate
Kenobi.
Gandalf. Yeah,
Yeah. And he left her,
yeah,
but didn't know that she was with child,
yeah.
and she had the child, and then proceeded to kill the child.
Yeah.
For what was her reason?
Out of spite.
Yeah, out of I didn't.
Oh,
Because-
well.
Because that's what mothers do.
Yeah.
They're very angry at the ex, so they kill their child.
Yeah.
It was kind of weird. And she's cursed forever because of that.
That's right.
Well, that sounds like justice.
And ends
So
up in-
I'm happy about her being stuck in Spider Cave forever.
so she's in Spiderland.
But when cheap exposition Obi-Wan Kenobi arrives,
Yeah.
she suddenly turns into a hot chick again
Yes.
and goes back in time.
I think that was him seeing
That's-
her his memory of what she was when she was. I think it's
because
it's a metaphorical.
because
No, I think he even says that she can now see herself through his eyes.
Because in his memory, that's what she looks like.
Yeah.
And so it doesn't matter how horrific she looks, she's still that.
Yeah.
That person is still that pretty girl that he fell in love with when he was young.
Yeah.
And he allows her to see her the way.
Beautiful sociopath who killed his child.
Yeah. And he seems to get over that pretty well.
He gets over it very well. I'd be very pissed about that.
Yeah. He does.
Oh, it makes a lot of sense.
I blame myself.
Yeah. It's like
obviously my fault.
It's like yep, all right, note to self, don't do that again. Yep.
So anyway, what I'm here to talk to you about, and then just moves on with the conversation.
Yeah.
I personally would have directed that sequence with her being the stunning. When he arrives, she's stunning and hasn't aged at all, and then turns into the ugly old woman.
After the redemption happens or something.
Something, whatever. And then we get to see, okay.
And then it'd be great to see him conflicted with. He'd like to take her out or do something, but he can't because she's useful. Mm. So he has to kind of swallow his rage and his grief and get her help anyway. That would, but again, that would have brought in story.
So what's the deal? What's the deal? Once he clambers across to the central hub of the big giant spider web, and we're introduced to the giant white spider that's huge.
I thought that was really good.
Yeah.
That was one of the best bits in the film.
Yeah, I thought so too.
Spider was well done.
Yeah.
Very well done.
What's the deal that he makes with the widow?
I, to be honest, couldn't really understand it. She has a time. What are they called? A giant egg timer thing with the sand, and they're going to smash it, and they're going to take a handful of sand.
She's a prisoner.
Yeah, she's a prisoner in there, and that kind of has her life in it.
The sand stops the spider from chewing her up.
Right.
So
okay, I got
she
that. She
turns it over, and the spider won't go near her.
Right. Okay. So when he breaks it, he can take it, and then he's protected from the spider.
Yes.
Yeah. And then the spider goes, so then he goes and escapes, and the spider can go and then eat her.
Yeah.
And also, no one can ever go in there and leave. They die. So she gives him her life sand.
That's right.
That's right.
And gives him enough in his hand
to get back to the others.
And tell what he has to tell before he dies.
Yeah.
And I thought that was pretty good.
Yeah.
I like that bit.
Yeah, that's kind of clever.
Yeah. Again, show don't tell. It would have been cool if they had a few things of him running through the forest, leaving sand, and he keeps checking his hand, it gets smaller and smaller.
Yep.
But anyway, he kind of arrives, and I like how he storms in the middle and he says, "I know where the bad guys are." He yells at the top of his lungs and then dies.
He dies because he's run out of sand. That's what happened.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. All right, so we now know where the new location of the bad guys is going to be, and it's going to be in the Iron Forest or something or other, 1,000,000 miles away.
Which is 1,000 leagues away.
1,000 leagues.
Which I've found out is 5,000 kilometres.
Okay.
That's quite a trip.
So we are going to need Google Maps.
Well, in order to get there in the time allotted, they need to travel at 146 kilometres an hour.
We've done some maths, no doubt.
Someone did, I didn't. The interweb's great.
All right, so
what's the only way we can get there? How the hell are we going to get 1,000 leagues in a day, Dan?
Well, for that, we're going to have to ask somebody for some more magic stuff, and we're going to need some giant eagles.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, actually, they're giant horses.
They're giant horses. Clydesdale horses.
Yeah.
Which used to be Clydesdales, the knights, the Scottish knights and English knights used Clydesdales because they were only fucking horses that could hold the bloody weight of all the armour and everything. And then apparently once armour phased out, once knights phased out, people stopped riding them. So it was almost impossible to find Clydesdales that people could ride. They had to train them. Every horse in the film that they were riding was trained for like 16 months or something because there's no such thing as a Clydesdale that people ride.
Yeah, right.
They use them for beard draft horses and they're pulling their beasts of burden, but very few people ride them. They're a massive horse.
Yeah.
They are a big horse.
That would have been cheap for the budget.
Yeah.
16 Clydesdales.
Save some money on by having just horses that you could ride.
Yes, horses. Regular horses.
Yeah.
And put some
you put fur on their fur on their feet, make them look
They're fire ponies anyway. It doesn't really matter.
But I must say it was pretty damn epic, and it was one of my favourite bits of the movie when they had like a herd of Clydesdales just like galloping down this thing, down this valley. Yep. And they had lots of shots of that, and that was really cool because they're huge.
They either fluked it or they worked it out because they looked like they were running at 146 kilometres an hour.
And the actors actually had to wrangle them.
Yeah.
Like, they were like, I was thinking, where were the stunt? There were sometimes when I could see their faces, and I'm thinking, well, that's obviously not the stunt person.
There were some stunt people like dragging behind them and stuff like that, but there were some actors that were jumping off rocks onto the Clydesdales.
I was quite impressed.
I think it was a simpler time in 1980s.
Well. Yeah. Director comes in. All right, I had a great idea last night. You, Gary, on that rock.
Yeah.
Because I read somewhere that the actors had to do it. They all wanted to, but then a lot of them balked at last minute. They just went, nah, these things are huge. I'm not going to.
Yeah.
This is not like how I imagined. All right. So just before we get on the flying horses to fly across the sky, we have to go and check in with the bad guys because the evil space monster, the Beast, is making his last proposal to the Queen
and
the princess.
He's offered an ultimatum. He said, "Marry me."
Yeah.
And everyone survives. Like, marry me and everyone. I won't kill everyone.
And he also does a betrayal trick. All right. So he tries to make it look like the local town, washerwoman.
That's right.
Is like kissing Prince What's His Face.
That's right.
And that was a pretty feeble trick, which didn't work.
It backfired.
Yes.
Because he'd possessed a hua
Yep.
that was cracking on to the prince, and the prince said, "You're wasting your time, love."
Yeah. She was a changeling as well.
Yes, that's right. And so they're back in the mountains seeing this happen.
Yes.
And the prince puts the mockers on the whole idea. Yeah. Okay.
And this is that dinner we were talking about where Liam Neeson got one of his 8 wives
to bring some girls around. To the forest.
And cook some tucker for the blokes because obviously they can't cook for themselves.
That's right.
Being rugged outdoorsmen.
Well, the women couldn't cook either, could they?
No.
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
All right, so magic horses. So that's a magic flight, which is a bit, actually, it's kind of like a story.
Well, they run
beat
really
in
fast across the ground for a while, but then they get to a crevasse or something, some big cliff, and then proceed to fly straight off it.
Yes, and run straight across the sky.
That's right.
All right, and then they arrive, which I think is actually, it's quite a big thing, but it's really it's really maybe 2 story beats, and that's the boss fight at the end. Because they arrive at the mountain.
Well, they arrive at the mountain, and to get into the mountain, they have to climb.
There's going to be 2 bits. There's going to be break in,
well, they got to
get
boss
in, fight.
And in order to get in, they're being attacked by slayers who have special
laser swords,
trapdoors that open up, and they zap them from afar. Special slayers, though. This is where we first see our white slayers, and they're trying to blast them off the mountain while they're trying to get in. So they're trapped. How do they get into the mountain?
Forgot.
The Cyclops.
Oh, is this the door squishing time?
No, well, not only that, he turns up, proceeds to climb straight past them, gets shot at least half a dozen times.
Yeah.
And then get to the door just as it's closing, and then hold the door open, and everybody gets inside.
Right. Okay, so he does his good moment, everybody gets inside.
So it's like a reverse hold door.
Yeah.
Instead of holding the door closed, he forces it open.
That's right.
And dies.
Well, they all get in. Yeah.
Except the second one is also done a lot better.
Yeah.
So we have 2 door squishing moments. We should make a video compilation of people getting squashed
Squashed
indoors
indoors.
in 1985 fantasy movies.
It's not a bad idea.
All right, so they're inside, and there's going to be lots of trials and tribulations as they fossick around the innards of this surreal castle.
That's right. They're getting split up into smaller groups,
Mm-hmm.
and the floor gives way,
Yes, and they get sucked into things.
Yep.
And Ergo does something useful. Well, actually, it's a second useful thing he's done.
Yes.
Because when the seer dies, the boy is sad.
That's right.
Yes.
So Ergo kind of sacrifices himself, turns himself into a cute puppy.
That's right.
Yes.
To make the boy happy.
Yes.
That's quite a moment.
What a guy.
Oh,
It's
Like, come on, let's give the story a bit of credit where
that is pretty heroic, actually.
And then in here he turns himself into a tiger in order to defend the boy.
That's right.
And gets wounded.
Don't know where he doesn't attack. He just roars a lot.
Yes, as well. So I was thinking about the tiger. It's kind of the tiger kind of stands around and stands next to a wall and looks at some stuff.
I saw a snippet from the documentary. There's a 20-minute documentary about it called "The Journey to Krull," and the little kid is being interviewed on the set at the time, and he's talking about how he did a scene the other day, and the tiger had to lie on his lap. I'm pretty sure that was a heavily sedated animal. Like, there's no way. Fully grown tiger.
Well, it's not fully grown, because it was fully grown.
Oh, no, it's a big tiger. Like, the tiger's head is about 4 times as big as the kid's head.
Yeah, but it's quite low. Like, the kid stands up quite high.
Yeah, it would have been an adolescent. Yeah. It's certainly big enough to tear the child apart.
Yeah, for sure.
And you could tell while this tiger, it showed this shot of the tiger lying down with its head in its lap, and you could just see it. It's not doing anything. It's got its eyes open, but it's not just lying there. I think they might have sedated it.
You can imagine if you made a comic book version of this, how would you draw the tiger? It would be wild-eyed, frenzied, claws out, teeth going everywhere, saliva, spittle. Yes, but this one was just like standing next to a wall.
Having a nap.
Having a bit of a nap. And meanwhile, the Slayers were like edging backwards. It's like, even though they had laser swords.
Yeah, I was thinking that we were talking about that. Like, was he so fearsome? Or had they never seen anything like that before and thought, what the is that?
Probably not. Probably not. It was another planet, and yet it was a Earth-based animal.
Yeah.
Maybe it was an alien to them.
Yeah.
He gets shot in the leg.
In the foot, yes.
In the arm, but in the tiger's leg.
Yeah.
And then later when he's found, we see that he's received a wound.
Yes.
But Ergo's kind of, there's a purpose now for him.
Yeah. He's found, his story arc is coward to hero.
Yeah.
Would we say?
Yeah.
No.
Yes. Total coward.
Full to hero.
Yeah, well, he was a coward at the start. That's why he jumped on the back of the horse with the prince when he... Remember, he came running out of the bush and said, well, that reminds me, I do need to go this way.
Foolish, I think, than cowardly. It's just him being silly.
It's certainly not heroic through the film, and then he becomes...
I thought he was more vicious when he turned into the goose.
What did he do while he was a goose?
Yelling and screaming and dancing around and flapping his wings and cursing and shouting. Well, anyway, so everybody's in a bit of trouble.
Yes.
And our hero makes it into the boss
inner chamber, the boss chamber.
The boss's anti-inner chamber.
Chucking his magical frisbee thing.
Yes.
Because the princess is inside a room. It's like...
the first time he's used the glaive, isn't it?
Yes, this is the first time
Yep.
he's ever done anything with it.
He hasn't used it when he's fighting the guys.
No, he hasn't done anything with it at all. So it's gonna, yes. And so what's the first thing? He's going to use it as a saw to cut open a wall so he can get his princess out of a room.
Out of some sort of chamber, yes.
It's out sort of skin chambers, like bone and skin.
Yeah.
All right. Okay, so he does that, and then she's out of the room, and then he's got to fight the boss, the big bad boss.
When does he use the frisbee to take out a whole bunch of soldiers?
He doesn't.
No, he doesn't. He uses it to take out some rocks to cause a cave-in.
Yes. I thought
he uses it to open the room. To do the cutty thing on the room, to cut a door. Because the glaive, you throw it once, but then it just hovers there and does the damage.
It's like a drone.
Yeah.
Somehow...
It's very much like a drone.
Yeah, and somehow you just stand there with your arm out and stare at it.
No, it's like that, Dan.
Yeah, you have this heroic pose.
You've got to have the pose. Open the shoulders up.
And then the drone glaive thing kind of does useful stuff.
That's right.
Yeah.
Okay. So the only thing I can remember him doing with the glaive is to get into the room, knock down the bricks, the rocks, and get stuck in the beast's chest.
Yeah, that's right.
So that's the final thing. It's like going ping, 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 and it's bouncing around, and the beast is and it's so much like Red Sonja, just like Icole or whatever his name is, chucks a ninja star and just gets stuck right in the center of his chest with one of its 5 dagger blades stuck about 4 centimeters into a giant thing's chest. And he falls down completely 100% dead.
Yep.
Because of the power of that glaive thingy.
It was an emotional moment when he went to get the thing out of, and because he tried to get it back. When the beast fell.
The telekinetic.
And it almost wants to go back to him, but it quite.
And yeah, that little sound effect that was happening, and so he goes over and he tries to pull it out himself, and then the hand of the beast comes over, and so they run for it.
But the beast isn't dead yet because they have to barbecue him.
So this is my point. After having the super magical sword weapon thing, that's actually like most other things in this movie, turned out to be useless.
Yep. Well, it sort of not fit for purpose. He probably didn't know that when he got the glaive that it was only good for breaking into things and knocking down walls. He probably thought it was better for taking out the beast, but in theory, quite useless for taking out the beast.
Yeah,
it just makes the beast angry.
It pissed him off. Yeah. Plus, his new girlfriend's being stolen back.
So when he gets his new girlfriend back and he realizes that the glaive thing is actually useless, this sparkly thing that's actually on the cover of the video and on the posters.
That most people think Krull is the blade.
And most people think Krull is the damn blade. Mm-hmm. How do they defeat the beast in the end?
Because there's the whole thing which they set up during the wedding.
Yeah, the fire.
The woman and the man together.
They sort of give fire to one another. The family give the fire to the kids for the wedding, and then the wedding got interrupted, and the fire was just about to be passed from her to him, and the Slayers turned up. Yeah. So she still had the fire in her hand.
Magic fire, right?
The magic fire was still on her personage.
So they go all Sigourney Weaver on that guy with a big flamethrower and
fed by love, Dan. Like it's not just fire.
The unity
It's not just
man
science.
and woman.
It's the marriage fire.
Only true love can make a flamethrower out of the wedding fire.
Make a flamethrower that nasty.
So would a gay couple in Krull be able to make the flame?
If true
that
love
would be
was
ice. They would have an ice one because they would be the opposite. That's how it works.
But only if true love was part of the equation.
Well, that's all right then.
And let's not forget that his teammates were downstairs at the point having spikes driven through there.
That's right. They're in a squashy garbage compactor.
And they were in the spike.
And actually, because by this stage, Robbie Coltrane is dead, and Liam Neeson's dead.
Yeah.
And all we're left with is people that I can't remember.
And we didn't really know much about. Oh
no, we had some dude who wasn't in the. He had no speaking parts.
Well,
in the whole thing.
There was
the
Torquil,
red shirt who was left alive.
Torquil,
and the young.
And the young guy with the
young bandit dude,
puffy fur shirt.
Yeah.
And there was some other big guy there.
Well, the big guy didn't last too long in the
Did he get
in the
spiked?
spiky.
Did he not make it?
Well, he dropped his knife and then he went to run for the knife and then forgot that there's spikes coming out of the wall and he didn't last long. Probably should have left the knife.
Yeah.
Knife wasn't going to help him.
All right. So when the boss is dead, of course, the castle blows up.
Because the castle is the boss.
Oh, is that what you reckon?
The boss is the castle.
Yeah, that's why it all started to crumble.
Then why did the magic fire, when it kills the boss, also kill the castle?
Is it the same thing?
They're the same thing. They killed the boss, and therefore the boss, being the castle, is also dead. Remember, right at the very end, the castle
zip, goes up into the sky.
Sucked up into the sky.
It goes to heaven. All right, so the castle blows up.
Yep.
And do we get a conclusion, or do we get an ending? They all jump up and freeze frame as they all go, huzzah, we won!
Close. But there was at least some narrative, some narration.
Yeah.
Which I think is kind of a bit of a cheaty conclusion.
It brings us all the way back to the start of the film.
We're going back to our tell, don't show type.
Although they do sit in a nice, pleasant, flowery meadow.
That's right.
And watch the castle thing blow up.
And go, phew, glad that's over. Are you happy? Yes, I'm happy. Fantastic. And the credits roll.
Torquil got a job out of it. He got offered the king's hand. Remember, he throws him. Well, he throws him the key. Right. Remember, only the king and the king's hand can have one of these because he tells him he can keep the key, and him saying that means I'm giving you the job.
Oh, I didn't realise that.
So it's more of a conclusion than a lot of the other films.
Okay,
fair enough. Not as much of a conclusion as the films we're used to.
Says he's going to keep the manacle on to remind him where he came from.
Yeah, which is a ridiculous idea. So they would
never get through airport security.
No, absolutely not.
Well, I'd like to now know what his crimes were, actually. That might be a good time to actually find out.
Maybe you should ask.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was a mass rapist.
Yeah. But that's all in the past now.
I'm king now. Thank you.
No one's seen the 7-year-old. What happened here?
All in the past, all in the past.
You gave me the job. Nothing more to see here.
No takesy backsies.
That's it.
All right. So they escape with a boom and roll credits and we're done.
Yep.
And Gandalf has to tell us the end of the story.
Gandalf wraps it up in a nice
How'd you
little
do that
bow.
when he's dead.
I thought they left it open.
Yes.
Dead.
They left it open for a
How is
sequel,
it
didn't
not-
they?
They
With the
did.
kid.
Did they?
Yeah,
Yeah,
well,
because-
they weren't the ones that were saving the planet or the universe. It was their child,
What's the sequel going to be called? Is it going to be called
son of Krull.
No. I would call it Krulls.
Krull 2.0.
No, I just pluralize it.
Beyond the Krull.
Yep.
The Krull
This
strikes
time
back.
there's 2 Krulls.
In another world, not like the other one.
Yes, with even less time
But
across
somewhere
space.
in the galaxy, but not far away. In a land.
Krill.
Krill, yes. Call it Krill. That's a smaller budget sequel.
So we've made it. We got through the world of Krull, and we came out the other side feeling better for it, I believe.
Yep.
We've
And
resolved.
As much as we hung shit on the film, the story's atrocious, writing's atrocious,
Yeah.
but I kind of enjoyed it.
I didn't mind it. I like all of that. It's not trying to reinvent cinematic narrative, right? It's not trying to do too much. It probably thought it was at the time, to the tune of $50 million, which is a lot of money on a film of this genre, of any film at that point in time. Yeah, I don't take it too seriously. It's got all of the elements. There's swords and wizards and creepy spiders, and there was some. Narratively, it was written by a madman. The ramblings of a madman.
Well, it's got a bit of each version of the script that they probably went through like 12 versions.
Yeah.
And when there's a little bit of each version.
Like you can take the beats of the hero's tale, right? The hero's journey. But that's not enough. It's the sinew that ties it together that is the true storyteller, right? You can't just
flavor gives it the flavor.
Well, yeah, the ingredients don't make the meal, right? It's how much you put in. It's when you put, like, I can put that in the oven for only 10 minutes, but this thing can go in there for 50 minutes. That's the true chef, and that's with writers. That's what it's all about. It's knowing I can put a pinch of that and a punch of that, and that's what this missed. It had all the elements. It just didn't have the right quantities, and it came at the wrong time, and it didn't percolate for long enough, and things like that. But I didn't mind it. For me, I got a bit of nostalgia there. I sort of I liked it. It was at a point in my youth where I really got into sci-fi, fantasy, and home videos and things like that. It was I probably watched it a whole bunch of times, maybe 20, 30 times. I might have seen that when I was a kid.
So do we want to rate it?
I will, in our rating system, burn, borrow, buy. I would borrow it.
Okay, that
Probably,
sounds
I probably would. Now that I've seen it again,
sounds fair.
I wouldn't buy it. Now that I've watched it, I don't think I've got it in my collection downstairs. I thought I did. I couldn't find it. I'm not going to rush out and buy it. If I saw it on the shelf tomorrow, I probably wouldn't buy it, even if it was a Blu-ray reproduction of it.
Tony, what do you reckon?
I burnt it with shit. I mean, it's everything I hate about these films. It treats this audience like they're idiots. It's like, oh, you're just people who like fantasy. You don't need a sensible story that makes sense. You don't need your script. You'll put up with any old shit, you people.
Yeah.
Here you go. It's just terrible.
I know exactly where Tony's coming from, and I, to a certain degree, or to a certain sense, I agree totally. But I have this connection to it that I can't bury. It's going to always be there.
Yeah. Reading people's comments and people's reviews of it, I skimmed through a whole bunch of those, and there seems to be 3 camps. Those people that think it is 10 out of 10 fan-friggin-tastic, and they're like, this... And then that's usually got a tagline down the bottom, a little line down the bottom that says, I saw it when I was 7 years old.
Yeah.
Then there's a bunch of people at the other end of the scale who think it's completely awful. And then strangely, but perhaps not so strangely, there's a bunch that's hover around 50% that, like you said before, it's a bit all over the place, a bit polarized.
Yeah.
For me, really didn't like it the first time. Kind of liked it a little bit more the second time. After poking a bit of fun at it and having a bit of a discussion about it, I think I like it a little bit more than before. But I'm, on the low end of borrow. Borrow with care.
So you'd borrow it, but then use it to chalk up a loose shell.
Yeah. It's a Tico.
Yeah.
Rick?
Ooh, it's no Hawk the Slayer, Red
Yeah.
Sonja.
Yeah. I think Hawk the Slayer to you is this film to me.
Yeah.
Where other people just will never understand what we see.
So I would probably not buy it off Amazon. If I saw it at a flea market, nice and cheap, I'd buy it.
Yeah, yeah.
So I'm at the very low end of buying. Flea market buy.
Yeah.
Flea market
Which is
buy.
higher than Dan's very low end of borrow. All right, so
We're all over the place like everybody else.
I think so too. I think
You're at the top end.
We want to condemn it, but at the same time, we feel we need to throw it a bone at something at some point, and it's doing that to us. You know what I mean?
Also, despite all that, I found it a little bit fun to watch, entertaining. I think Beck's comment says it all.
I think so too.
It's better than the rest of the shit you made me watch.
Everything's relative. Everything is relative.
Yeah, that sums it up.
All right. So that's it for another week, gentlemen. Thank you for joining us once again. We might leave fantasy for a couple of weeks. I think we're going to have a look at the schmozzle.
Ooh.
The absolute schmozzle that is the 5th Transformers film.
Don't give anything away, but...
And all we're going to say is that it'll make for a very colourful show.
I haven't seen that.
Yes,
No,
we have to.
no,
we
you've
have to
never seen
subject
it.
you, and I want to watch you while you do it. While you experience
we should film Rick while Rick watches the film. So that's probably hopefully going to be our next show. And I think what we need to do from now on, 2020 hindsight, we probably should have said this at the start of the show. People really should have a look at the film before they see this show, because it really makes. Tom tells me it makes quite a difference to listening to the ramblings of us four madmen when you have fresh eyes on, when there's context to what we're talking about. Mainly because we jump all over the place, and we could probably damage people's brains. Whereas if you see the film recently, then it's sort of, you're not alone. You in your experience, you start to feel like, okay, yeah, no, I saw that as well, which I think is better than going in cold. So between now and next show, maybe have a look at the 5th Transformers film, because that's what we're going to have a look at. We're going to make sure that we have a look at that.
Or actually, feel free, if you've got nothing else to do and you're up at 3 o'clock in the morning, let us know. Is it better to see the film after we've talked about it, or before we've talked about it?
That's a good call. I'd love to know that as well. And how can they let us know, Dan?
Follow us on Voyage of the Geek on Twitter. You can go to Voyage of the Geek on YouTube, and Voyage of the Geek on Facebook.
On the book, The Futches.
Yes, we got a bit of a pattern happening here. So yeah, chuck us a like, leave us a comment, tell us how we're doing, and tell us whether you think you should watch it before or watch the movie after.
Maybe even leave a score out of our burn, borrow, buy.
Yeah. Leave a score as well, because we want to get a bit of a consensus.
Yep, absolutely. And maybe even if there's some films that you might think be good for us to have a look at.
Yeah, some classics to
drop those
suggest.
in all of those avenues as well. Okay, gentlemen, thank you for being here, and until next time, it's bye for me.
Bye.
Bye.
Good night.
Why is my music?
How do you turn this thing off?
My music's not working.
Am I still on?
We'll try again.
Hello.
Talk amongst yourselves.
Put
For
that
some
down,
reason,
Dave.
I've
Put it
lost
down.
my.
Off button. Just pull the cable
No, I've got to play the outro.
out. Okay.
For some reason,
Can people hear this?
Maybe we should sing the outro or something.
Well, how about we go with this music? And bye for now.
probably worth listening just for that.